Coming up on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show,
we're going to talk about square foot gardening versus row gardening and what might be better for you,
as well as tomato varieties in which we would recommend you grow this year.
And we're also going to have Garden Radio Show host Jessica Walliser from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's also an author with a new book.
As well as your garden questions and our garden answers. All that starts right now.
It is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. You may be listening, however you may be listening, whether on WNOV 860 AM or FM 106.5 in the city of Milwaukee, the TuneIn app, the Simple Radio app, or anywhere in between. We are happy that you are with us live on this Saturday morning, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Our website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, is where you can find all of our information. There's a number of ways in which you can contact us, and you can do that by sending us an email at twvgradio@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at hashtag TWVG, or our Twitter handle is TWVG Show. If you want to contact us that way, or
we have the Ivy Organic 3in1.com hotline. Ivy Organic 3-in-1 Plant Garden actually protects plants against damaging sunburn insects and rodents, protects newly installed plants and trees, shields, prune, and damaged surfaces for use on your roses, fruit and nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. This product is non-toxic, environmentally safe, and organic. For more information, visit ivyorganics.com. And you can call in anytime during the show to 414-444-5250.
Yeah, you can do that, and we'll be more than happy to help you with your garden questions. We had a good time last week at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We were hello to those who shouted out to us. We appreciate it. Makes us feel good. You know, we had several people say we listened to the show, and thank you for that. And welcome to those new ones who were able to find the show through our endeavors there through the parade. It was a cold parade, but it was fun.
It was fun. It could have been colder.
Well, it could have been colder, could have been warmer. But we do want to thank Holly's dad for driving us. We were back to the pickup truck, and he drove us. That was his first parade ever, so that was...
that he was in.
That he was in, yeah. So, also with the, when we do these programs, we try to cover as much as we possibly can during the 60 minutes that we have, and sometimes we can't get into everything that we want to, and sometimes we just forget about certain aspects because we're trying to cover other portions of that particular topic. And last week we forgot to mention two things in the second segment in regards to things to know before you buy your seeds. And one was buying seeds that are going to grow successfully in your area.
Right, that's important because if you're trying to grow avocados in Wisconsin, that's probably not going to work out for you.
Well, like dragon fruit. Dragon fruit is a cacti plant that produces a fruit that takes 2 years to grow. If you are able, we've got some conditions and some grow rooms in which we can grow it or attempt to grow it successfully. If you don't have that, you're going to waste your time. So you want to be aware of that, as well as if you're buying perennial seeds or annual seeds. Such as rhubarb or asparagus, which can take several years to grow, versus a tomato plant, which is one season. An annual is a yearly plant. A perennial will come back year after year, that type of thing. So we wanted to revisit that and make sure we cleared that up for you in case there was any confusion. Well, today we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages to both traditional row gardening and square foot gardening. Square foot gardening versus traditional row gardening. What is the best for you, and what should you start doing?
So in row planting, this is evenly spaced vegetables planted in a tidy bed. It's when you're planting in rows, essentially. You're going to have, say you're planting beets. You're going to maybe choose a bed, 2 rows of beets, space them about 4 inches apart, and then when you plant them in, the rows are about a foot apart.
Yeah, we get this from traditional big ag industry. This has been passed down, years and years and years ago. The farmers' wives or farmers mimicked that particular type of layout in their backyard garden. Okay, So, and then square foot. Let's talk about square foot gardening first.
So, square foot gardening is a practice of growing into small square foot sections, which is a 12-foot square, and it's to assist the planting and creating of small but intensely planted vegetable garden. So it's a little bit more intense, and it's not as traditional. However, it's a very great concept.
Right. Mel Bartholomew, I'm not pronouncing that name correctly. He developed this particular method of gardening back in the 60s, 70s. He has recently passed away in the last year and a half. He wrote the book, The Square Foot Garden Book, which is the most sold gardening book in world history. And it's a concept that has allowed millions upon millions of people to garden that were never able to garden before, because everybody believed that you needed a big field or a big backyard in order to grow anything.
Right. He definitely brought it more applicable to urban people and to people who have smaller backyards or maybe want to grow in a raised bed, something like that. But definitely. So about it is that it's super productive. Intensive planting means larger yield from smaller spaces. So if you have limited space, it's definitely great. It's fast to set up.
This can be done in a raised bed,
right,
or a large container. Mm-hmm. The concept is the same, and it produces a lot. And let's define this a little bit more. Square foot gardening. Let's say a 4 by 4 foot raised bed or 4 by 4 foot spot in the garden, in the ground. Each square foot represents essentially a mini garden. So each square foot, 1 square foot, you can put 16 carrots, 16 radishes in another square foot. You can plant 9 onions in a square foot, 1 tomato in 1 square foot. So essentially you have 16 gardens in 1 4 by 4 foot square area.
And I think that's what the attractiveness is to it, is that it's kind of foolproof in a way that you're like, I don't know how to plant this stuff. I'm a new gardener. And then you read the back of the seed packet and you're like, I don't know if I have all this room for these rows.
Just a guideline.
It's just a guideline. Yeah. And so then you're like, oh, here's the square foot method. And then it's it's another guideline, but it kind of makes sense in a visual way when you're looking at a garden. A lot of people can envision a garden in squares, not necessarily in rows. It just kind of depends. Because if you're like, I only have this much space, it's easier to maintain.
Now, another pro to the square foot gardening, and Holly and I practice both methods. We do square foot gardening, traditional ground gardening, row gardening, container gardening. We do straw bale gardening. We do all of it. So it's not that we're trying to entice you to take this particular direction. We're just giving you the information so you can decide what would be most beneficial for you in your particular growing situation. It's a fast setup. It's easy to build. Just get some 2 by 8s or 2 by 10s, 2 by 12 lumber. Make a 4 by 4 square foot bed, treated or untreated. We know now that the treated lumber does not contain arsenic which did 15, 20 years ago. It contains a copper preservative to make it more water resistant, and based on your research, some people believe that's okay, other people don't, so you can figure out what you want. And you fill it with good enriched soil. Mm-hmm. It gives the plants, it's a great way to set up and a great way to produce a lot of produce.
So let's talk about some cons here to square foot gardening.
Okay.
One is that it's not ideal necessarily for all crops. If you have a crop that takes up a lot of room, like a vining crop, like a squash, cucumber, bean, well, you could trellis the cucumbers, but a squash you can't really trellis that, or melons. You may have to be strategic in how you grow those. Put them near the edge, or think about where they're going to be. You can't just put them smack dab in the middle of your garden.
Right. This is a great concept for bush beans or carrots, onions, radishes, the small stuff, lettuces, spinaches, that do not take, lots of square foot to grow. So that's kind of a con there. Also, it can be kind of pricey to set up because you're buying lumber, you're buying some type of material. In most instances, you're doing this in a raised bed. And you're purchasing soil and filling that with the enriched soil, which you're purchasing.
Right. Also, one thing they mention here is in the book, it says that 6 inches is deep enough to grow in. That's not necessarily true. You probably want about 12 inches.
Right. If you're going to do icicle radishes, which is a white cylindrical radish that grows deep, that can grow 6-8 inches in length. We've had them grow in 15-inch high containers, the whole depth of the container. Mm-hmm. So by having that shallow depth, you're going to restrict the roots and even the root development of some of these bigger root crops like beets and rutabagas and turnips to get, and forget about carrots or parsnips if you're even going to go 6 inches. That's not even worth it. It's not going to grow
Right, so you
very
have to
good.
consider that, and that's another con to think about. But knowing that knowledge, that you would just make it deeper.
Right. Let's talk about some pros about traditional row gardening like many of us are familiar with. One, it's pretty low cost. You just take and you dig a plot of land, and you set up a grid type of, here's 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, space them evenly, plant your seeds or your starts, and you're good to go. So it's pretty easy to do that. That's a low cost, and you do want to kind of look at the soil. You might need get a soil test to find out.
Well, that's the thing is
Yeah.
that you might not know what your soil is going to be like. You don't know if you have good soil, if you have terrible soil, soil with like some sort of chemicals in it possibly.
Right.
So that's something you have to consider is
It
what lies beneath.
Right. Also, the advantages to a traditional row garden, not a raised, it doesn't dry out as quick. So with a square foot garden method, you're planting them so intensely, so tightly that they can dry out because they're sucking up so much moisture so quickly. A pro to the row garden is less competition. You don't have them as intensely planted as you would in a square foot garden method. A con to the row garden method, usually you're going to have to deal with weeds early on in the years of establishing it. Once you get those gardens established and remove the weeds regularly, you're not going to have that big of an issue with weeds. We've worked on this for years and years and years. 5 years, 6 years, and we're getting to the point where the weeds are at a very minimum, because what weeds do up here we remove before they go to seed, and we're cleansing the garden beds of that.
Right. So it's intricate work a bit, but at the same time it's going to save us some time down the road. So, but if you are a traditional row gardener, that's what works for you. Keep doing it.
Well, let's do this example of the space, the amount of produce you can put in one versus the other.
Okay, so we're going to do radishes as an example. You have a 4 by 8 foot bed, so that's 32 square feet. So it's 16 plants per square foot when it comes to radishes, which is 512 radishes. So in the same bed, if you do 4 rows, 1 foot apart, seed space 1 per inch, that's 96 plants per row, 384 radishes. So it's a difference of 128 radishes more. You get more with the square foot method.
Right, and if you just go, let's do another one. Bush beans are more reasonable.
Right, bush beans.
Yeah, because a lot of people most people don't want to grow 384 radishes.
Right. So bush beans, same bed, 9 plants per square foot, 288 bean plants. Or 4-inch rows, 4-inch spacing, or 4 rows, 4-inch spacing, 1 foot apart. That's 96 plants. That's a difference of 192. That's quite a bit.
Right, especially if you're wanting to produce a lot to can. So many of us grew up with row gardening. Many of us we did that and we didn't know any different. With the square foot gardening, it gives the plants. You get a lot more plants in 1 square foot. But it can be, a problem because there's diseases and less air to circulate the plant. So hopefully that gives you some idea between the pros and the cons with the square foot gardening versus row gardening, and you can look into it more on your end and figure out what's going to work best for you. When we come back, we're going to discuss some tomato varieties in which you should grow that we would recommend right after this.
24/7, 365. The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com has all the gardening information you need, videos, digital magazines, replays of shows, and more.
EcoGarden Systems is a revolutionary way to grow food. A fully contained raised platform with a conventional watering system, solar power unit optional. Made from recycled material in the U.S., EcoGarden Systems raised garden bed offers sustainable organic gardening that is environmentally sound, quick and easy to set up, maintain, and fun to use. Fill your garden with soil and plant your seeds. Your EcoGarden will take care of the rest. Can set up in backyard, patio, and even your driveway, any level surface. For more information, visit EagleGardenSystems.com. Use coupon code WIVEG125 to save $125 and get free shipping, a $250 value on the purchase of an Eagle Garden Original Garden Unit, available only in stone color. Purchases must be made to the website EagleGardenSystems.com/store. Offer valid through December 31st, 2018. Available to the contiguous United States. The number one key to healthy, productive plants are the roots. Starting from seed to full-grown plants, Rootmaker.com has the answer. From seed starting trays with an innovative design that air prunes the roots, creating a fabulous root system, never again will you have root-bound plants, to multiple gallon grow bag sizes to raised beds. Rootmaker.com has your grow needs covered. Visit Rootmaker.com.
Pomona's Universal Pectin is high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar, honey, or any alternative sweetener you'd like. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Available at most natural food stores and online.
The Gardener's Hollow Leg, the debris and harvesting bag you wear, comes with its own belt attachment, perfect for doing light pruning, weeding, harvesting on the ground or on a ladder, and many other uses. Find out more at thegardenershollowleg.com. Save 10% by using the word veggies at checkout. Tall Earth Wood Treatment, all-in-one preservative and stain, offers lifetime protection and creates a unique silver-aged wood finish. All ingredients are non-toxic, eco-friendly, perfect for garden beds and veg trucks. Find out more at tallearth.com. Free shipping on all orders. Use coupon code WISCONVEG to save 15% off orders placed at tallearth.com. The first greenhouse ever recording being built? This garden fun fact is sponsored by ManureTea.com. Get your 3-pack today. Drop the tea bag in water, let steep, and feed your soil, not your plants. 100% organic. Find out more at ManureTea.com. Always free shipping. The first recorded greenhouse was built in Rome in 30 AD under the orders of Emperor Tiberius, who wanted to eat a cucumber every day. Andrew Faneuil in Boston built the first greenhouse in North America, recorded in 1737.
Hi, I'm John Lewandowski, retail manager of Blue Mel's Garden and Landscape Center. Now, I'm not going to tell you about our awesome dome-grown plants, our beautiful pottery, or our 40 varieties of landscape materials. What I am going to tell you is that Blue Mel's is a local, independent, family-owned garden center that truly cares about your garden or landscape project. So if you're looking for that one garden center that actually cares about you, come to Blue Mel's Garden and Landscape Center. We've been treating our customers like family since 1955.
Blue Mel's, 4930 West Loomis Road, 414-282-4220. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is brought to you by the following: Flame Engineering, Eagle Garden Systems, Bobex, Plant Success, Beans and Barley, M.I. Gardener, Outpost Natural Food Co-op, Root Assassin, Manure Tea, The Gardener's Hollow Leg. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show, where 100% of the listeners polled prefer to hear Joey and Howie rather than an angry goat.
Well, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there is a lot of vegetables that a lot of people grow, but one of the most popular ones in the whole world is tomatoes. So every time we do a tomato talk, or any time we do a garden talk, people always say, well, what kind of tomatoes do you recommend? And our first answer is, what do you intend to do with these tomatoes?
Right.
Because it's just like, you know, what car should I buy? Well, what do you do? Well, I'm a farmer. Well, then I move cattle. Well, a car is probably not the option for you. You know, I need to know what your intentions are in order for me to guide you in the direction that I can help you do that. So one thing we need to establish before we talk about the varieties, you're still hung up on the goat there.
I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm also thinking about you selling cars now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that as well.
Uh-huh.
Is one, where are you planting these tomatoes? Are you doing it in a container, in a raised bed? Do you have a lot of space? Because tomatoes fall in essentially two different categories. indeterminate, and determinate.
Right, so indeterminate is also known as the vine tomato. This tomato will continue to grow until you yank it out of the ground or frost comes. That's how you kill an indeterminate tomato. So there's tomatoes growing in Hawaii for years and years and years because they're a vine plant and that's what they do.
Can you imagine having tomatoes year-round, walk out in the backyard and just pick them? And
It might make your angry goat happy.
okay.
Yeah. So that's the indeterminate, also known as the vine variety. And then there's the bush variety, which is the determinate tomato. Grows to a certain height, puts out all of its fruit, and then that's it. But if you're growing a container, the bush tomato is good because it's going to do that for you.
Right. And now, again, but if you're going to want to have something to eat all summer long, determinate is not your choice because it's going to produce within a 2 to 3 week period, and that's it. It's going to piddle out and not going to do anything. You want something that's going to produce all summer long. So, let's talk about what we would recommend if you just want eating tomatoes. Just something to eat, put on a sandwich, put salt. Well, I grew up with salt and pepper. Slice a tomato, put salt and pepper on it, eat it as a side at a meal, or just as a snack. That's what we grew up with. So a general ordinary beefsteak tomato is perfect.
Yeah, those are good.
These will get to 1.5 to 2 pounds based on the conditions.
They can get, kind of big or medium size. So beefsteak is definitely good. If you're like, I want something that I can just pick off the plant and snack on, then that would be like a cherry or a plum or grape variety. And those come in every color you want.
Right.
It's amazing. There's like white, yellow, orange, red, obviously, and purple and all sorts.
In perfect conditions, and that varies based on who you talk to. The average cherry tomato plant can produce upwards of 200 to 300 cherry tomatoes over a growing season. So that is a lot of cherry tomatoes. And again, they don't produce them all at once. They will put on clusters at a time. And if you have problems with pollination, the advantage to growing tomatoes is the flower itself contains male and female reproductive parts. So just by wind blowing, by you tapping it, it will self-pollinate itself. So you can actually grow tomatoes inside if the temperatures and you have correct light indoors. You can get them to grow inside without any problem. So that's another thing you can do. So let's talk about, and people will say, well, what's a good one for canning? I want to can my tomatoes. I want to make chunky sauce. I want to do this. I want to do that. What can we use as a tomato in that aspect?
Sure. So it would be what's called a paste variety. So you have anything from the Amish paste to the Roma to the San Marzano. But, if you have the space and you're going to grow a variety of tomatoes, as long as I wouldn't recommend trying to can a bunch of cherry tomatoes. That'd be a pain.
Because remember, when you're canning them, you're removing the skin.
Yeah.
The larger the tomato, the easier it is to remove the skin. The less skins you have to remove because you've got less tomatoes. With the San Marzano. Let's give a caution to what we have learned in our experience growing that.
So we grow in 3 different areas, and where we live close to the lake, and we've noticed that has the best success with the San Marzano. Tomatoes originally came from the Mediterranean area, or not originally, but I think that's where they were discovered. People discovered they could eat them, and they were delicious. So our lake climate mimics the Mediterranean climate. So we have success with San Marzano. If you live more inland, then I would recommend something like Aroma or an Amish paste.
Yeah, Aroma is a go-to, very good as well.
Now, if you're just going to make some salsa, can the tomatoes, just, grow a variety, see how you like it. We can everything.
Yeah, we grow 42 varieties, and everything gets canned, excluding, I think, the 10 or 15 cherry varieties in which we grow. So we do a lot of mixing and mingling with it because it adds a lot of flavor.
And I think it looks pretty, too. I think it's nice when you, I'll take some canned tomatoes, open them up, add them to something, a soup or a dish, and sometimes you have the yellows and the oranges and the purples. It looks pretty.
If you want a low-acid tomato, do not grow red tomatoes. Red tomatoes have predominantly higher acidity levels. So if you don't like high acidities, grow something that's not red. We found a tomato that is amazing. It's called Giant White. It is actually a white tomato that,
and it's very sweet.
yeah,
But
not
it's really,
like sugar
not
sweet.
like sugar sweet, just like tomato sweet.
Right.
And it's not acidic, and it's really good.
And it's a slicing tomato, a big sized tomato. Now there are snowball cherry varieties of similar type of tomato. The snowballs are not nearly as sweet as the Giant White, but again, it's a really good tomato, and we grow many of those. Now, what you're thinking, when I initially came up with this, found this, M.I. Gardner has this, I was like, well, we could, essentially grow a whole field of these and make white tomato sauce or make white tomato juice. And you could, and that would, be very different. But it's another thing. Another great flavored tomato, your go-tos.
Is, I'll go back to the Brandywine, but the Black Krim. It's like a purplish color tomato.
A dark purple.
It's a dark purple, and it is so good. It's like just smack you with the tomato flavor, but not in a bad way.
And whether we've had drought, whether we've had rain, whether we've had cold or hot, that Black Krim has always produced almost on a consistent basis. So we've never had a problem with that. So that's kind of what we have found to be the go-to there for, we know we're going to get something.
Right, definitely. And then the Brandywines are good. There's yellow, red, pink, black Brandywines. Those are delicious too. Always good options. And then I wanted to mention the Green Zebra.
Okay.
If you like something a little bit more tart, that's the Green Zebra.
What's the green one we're growing this year? Ant something. I forget. It's a giant green tomato that M.I. Gardner has.
Remember.
And then there's green sausage, which it's a green tomato with yellow stripes that we're growing. And there's a red zebra too. So a red zebra is a red one with yellow stripes, and the green zebra
is green with like a blackish,
dark
green color stripes.
Yeah. So you want to keep that in mind. And again, knowing what you are growing, so you know when things are to be ripe. Just because, it's not ripening. It's not going to turn ripe because it's green zebra.
Right, or a white tomato.
Right. So there's some of our recommendations for growing tomatoes. Again, if you have any questions, you can find the tool tab under our tool tab at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Tomatoes, tomato varieties in which we grow, most of those are listed there. And you can always shoot us an email at twvgshow@gmail.com. Up next, author Jessica Walliser will be with us right after this.
Got a question? Email the show at twvgshow@gmail.com.
Mycorrhizae is a beneficial fungus from PlantSuccessOrganics.com that will greatly increase your plant's germination, ability, and healthier root structure. You can increase seed sprouting, root growth, and general plant germination. Mycorrhizae can be used with hydroponic root cutting, seed sprouting, cocoa coir, and soil. PlantSuccessOrganics.com carries powder, granule, and tablet form of mycorrhizae. Increase the level of mycorrhizae in your soil to give your plant the optimal opportunity to produce incredible harvests. For more information and to purchase, visit PlantSuccessOrganics.com.
Wouldn't you love to get more from your growing space? By utilizing the square foot garden method and properly spacing your plants, Seeding Square will optimize and organize your veggie garden to grow more greens and less weeds. The square foot color-coded seed spacer is a great tool for any garden, ground container, or raised bed, and all experience levels, even little green thumbs. For more information, visit SeedingSquare.com. Seeding Square is gardening made simple.
Garden seeds do not have to cost a fortune, just 99 cents at migardner.com. Now with over 450 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, and organic flower, vegetable, and herb seeds available year-round. Pay less and get more seeds. Shipping as low as $2.50. That just makes sense. Go to migardner.com for seeds and garden needs, tools, and special blend fertilizers. migardner.com. It's that simple. Family owned and operated. Shield and Seal vacuum sealers and the highest quality vacuum sealing products. Unique black and clear and all black bags, protecting your produce and product better than traditional bags. Find out more at shielandseal.com. Zaz Products, offering great quality supplements that can help personal health and increase longevity. Committed to bringing you the highest quality products at the lowest price. Find out more at ZazProducts.com. Rebel Green, responsibly made natural products that are good for you and the environment. Made in the USA, plant-based, vegan, and always toxic-free. Find out more at rebelgreen.com.
I know you're looking for natural and organic food, but at a great price. I've found the place. Woodman's has what you need. Woodman's offers a huge natural and organic selection with some of the area's largest organic meat, produce, and dairy departments. Shop consciously, but it won't break the bank. They have aisles of all the organic food, snacks, and treats you've been looking for, so you and your family can eat healthier without overpaying. Visit their Milwaukee area store locations, Kenosha, Menominee Falls, Oak Creek, and Waukesha, or visit woodmans-food.com to find the nearest location to you.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is brought to you by the following: Handy Safety Knife, BioSafe, Tall Earth, Chapin International, The Plant Booster, Ivy Organics, Woodman's Market, Blue Mel's Landscape and Garden Center. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show
We talk gardening. That's all we do. That's what this is all about.
with your hosts, Joey and Hallie Baird.
We're always happy when we have listeners call in with questions. We're going to go to the Ivy Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline. Caller, you've got a question?
Yes. I had about 15 packages of different tomato seeds, radish seeds, and so on from last year. And I'm just about ready to start tomato plants in the house. Will these seeds be any good for this year?
Yeah, you just bought them last year. That's fine. Seeds lose about 10% germination year after year, but if you had them last year, that's fine.
Yeah. And keeping them in a cool, dry place, it will extend and increase that germination rate from year to year. But, yeah, you're absolutely fine. We've used tomato seeds that we've had for 5 years now, and they are still germinating at almost a 75% rate.
Okay. And then the other thing is I was interested in a square foot gardening, but I was trying to figure a way of filling that square with soil. But I've noticed here in Milwaukee, a lot of the topsoil that you were taking out of the Milwaukee River, storing it on a farmland, and then selling it back to people as topsoil. But a lot of that soil is probably contaminated with what's ever in that river.
That could be. What I would recommend you doing is calling Blue Mel's. They've got a whole line of bulk material and bagged, and they can trace back the origins of where that soil derived from, so you know what you're getting before you put it in your garden bed.
Okay. Sounds good.
I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I'm happy for those who are listening in Milwaukee, whether on live now or replay or video replay, but because of Blue Mel's is here in Milwaukee. I feel bad for those who don't have the opportunity to visit Blue Mel's, who are outside of the Milwaukee area, because Blue Mel's is one of the most fantastic garden centers that I have ever come across. They are independently owned, which means they don't have to answer to some guy in an office in Appleton or Madison or Chicago. They're family owned since 1955. And when I say they truly care about your garden and landscape needs, I mean that, because you'll go in and say, here's what I'm wanting to do, and they'll ask you why, and then they'll say that's not going to be the result that you're going to get if you do it this way. They will talk you or try to talk you out of things that they know are going to end poorly for you.
And all the people who work there are quite passionate.
Oh, absolutely.
And they know their stuff.
Right. And you can find Blue Mel's Landscape and Garden Center. It's located at 4930 West Loomis Road. You can call them up at any time, 414-282-4220, the official garden center of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. Let's bring in our guest this week. Go to the Ivy Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline, Holly.
Jessica Wallace co-hosts Organic Gardeners on KDKA Radio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's a regular contributor to Fine Gardening, Urban Farm, and Hobby Farm magazines. Jessica also serves on the editorial Advisory Board of the American Horticulture Society. She's also an author and devoted bug lover and has a new book called Container Gardening Complete, Creative Projects for Growing Vegetables and Flowers in Small Places. Welcome to the program, Jessica.
Thank you so much. How are you guys this morning?
We are doing well, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and share some of your wisdom with all of us.
Well, I so appreciate the invitation. It's always great to talk to you guys.
We've been looking through your book, and it's very nice. It's got a lot of great pictures, ideas. It's definitely it is a complete container gardening book. So for sure. So now many people may not realize you can grow fruit trees and berry bushes in containers. What are some tricks to doing that?
Yes. Thank you for your compliments about the book, Holly. I appreciate that so much. And yeah, talking about fruit trees, I mean, right off the bat, that's something that a lot of people think must be really difficult to grow in containers. But the fact is, fruit trees are one of the most fun things to grow in pots. But the trick is that you really have to choose the right size container and the right varieties of fruit trees. Obviously, when you're talking about growing, substantially sized plant material in a pot, you need a pretty big container that holds a large volume of soil, and then you need to choose a variety that's bred specifically for containers. So you need to look for something that's grafted on a extra dwarfing rootstock, or you would need to look for something that is a true genetic. So, for example, there's a bunch of peach and nectarine varieties that are true genetic dwarfs that max out at about 4 or 5 feet tall. So one of those would be a good one for containers. Or a smaller fruit plant like blueberries, or some of the container-specific varieties of raspberries or strawberries. Those are great ones to grow in containers.
Well, with growing in containers, for new gardeners who may choose this route because it seems like a good way to get started, do we have to worry about less insects, less problems, less bugs, or is it the same concern as those who are growing in the traditional methods that many of us gardeners like you and I grew up with?
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that unfortunately is often, there's a lot of misinformation about how easy it is to grow in containers. And I don't want to give anybody the impression that it's difficult, but we also need to be really truthful. And we can't say that growing in containers is trouble-free, because that would just set people up for disappointment if they did end up having issues. So one of the things that we wanted to do in Container Gardening Complete was actually have a whole chapter dedicated to troubleshooting, which really talks about the fact that, you are still probably going to have to deal with pests. You might still have to deal with diseases. Now, there's probably going to be fewer soil-borne diseases in a container because you're using usually a sterilized potting soil to grow the plants, but there's still potential for those types of issues. So, you still have to be on the lookout for pests. You still might have to manage them using some organic techniques. But it is a lot easier to grow in containers in terms of, you don't have to weed, you don't have to mulch. So those types of chores are definitely reduced.
Great. Now, when choosing a container to grow something in, is there a type of container or material you would say is an absolute terrible idea?
Well, I think that kind of depends on where you live and what your growing conditions are. So, for example, if you live in a really hot climate and the sun, that you're going to have your container garden somewhere where there's a whole lot of full sun, you might want to skip a container that is made out of metal, especially a dark-colored metal, because that can really retain a lot of heat. It can make the soil and the roots right inside the pot, extra hot. You can risk burning the roots and actually quite literally frying the plant. So that would be something to skip in a really warm climate. If you live in a climate with a lot of winds or, sort of dry air, then you might want to skip growing in terracotta, because terracotta, which is just sort of those orangish traditional clay pots, while it's pretty inexpensive, it's extremely porous, and plants and soil in a terracotta pot will dry out very, very quickly, especially if there's any amount of breeze or wind at all.
Well, we get this question a lot, and you're a bug expert, good and bad bugs. People say, I have a lack of pollination, which we all know in the gardening world that is a major concern. What are some good ways to increase pollination for these plants that do need it?
Yeah, so if you're planning on growing vegetables in your container garden at all, it's always a good idea to also make sure that you have plenty of flowers included in that container vegetable garden. So I always tell somebody, if you're going to plant a tomato plant, then also put a couple of plants in that pot that are very attracted to bumblebees, because bumblebees are the primary pollinators of tomato flowers. They need to have that what's called buzz pollination, which is that vibration, right, like an electric toothbrush against the flower. So those are the types of plants that you want to plant if you're going to grow something like tomatoes. If you're going to grow like a dwarf watermelon or a bush type of squash or cucumbers, then you're going to want to plant some flowers that might attract the European honeybees or some of our larger native bees like the squash bee or leafcutter bee. So as many flowers as you can include in that container vegetable garden, the better your pollination will be. They always should go hand in hand.
Great. Now, feeding, fertilizing is a good idea for all gardeners. When it comes into containers, since they are smaller and some nutrients can run off faster, what is a good feeding guideline?
Yeah, so, I always say container fertilization really should be twofold. One, it should involve using the right potting soil, and ideally that's one that already contains an organic slow-release fertilizer within that potting soil mix. And when I mix my soil to go in my containers, I always do half potting soil and half compost, because that compost will add nutrients. It'll also add a lot of the good soil microbes that plants use to grow. And so that should be the first step, setting yourself up right with a good nutritious mix in that soil. But then you also do want to use a liquid organic water-soluble fertilizer in your irrigation water. So there's a bunch of different brands out there. Being an organic gardener myself and a former organic farmer, I would always say go with ones that are based on naturally occurring ingredients. And use those instead of the chemical, blue water-soluble ones if you can avoid those, especially if you're going to grow edible crops. And so I usually recommend to people to do that in their irrigation water about once every 2 to 3 weeks according to the label instructions, and that will really provide your plants with all the nutrients that they need.
If we're growing annuals in containers from last year to this year, or we had containers, grow bags, that we had tomatoes, peppers, whatever in it, how do we revitalize that soil? What's a good way to, do we need to dump the container out and repot it or just put new soil in? What's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, ideally, that's a great question. I get this a lot when I go out and give talks, and ideally you want to replace that soil mix 100%. And that is especially true if you're growing any types of vegetables like those tomatoes and peppers that you mentioned that are prone to any soil-borne fungus or any blights. And that is because the blights can overwinter in the potting soil on the pots themselves. And so it's really important that you empty the pot out. At the end of the season, you scrub it out with a 10% bleach solution to really kill any of those possible pathogens. Obviously, you can't do that if you're growing an apple tree or a blueberry bush in a container because you don't want to have to uproot that plant every year. In that case, you could just add a little extra fertilizer, maybe top it off with an inch or two of compost in that pot. But if you're talking about annual plants, ideally you really do want to completely swap out that soil mix, again, especially if it's a plant that's prone to disease.
Okay, that was my question. Is there a certain gallon size, like if I'm doing 60 gallon, 120 gallon, we still want to get that soil out, or is there kind of a guideline there going, if it's this big, only remove so much, or what would you suggest?
Well, again, it's really up to the gardener because I do know that potting soil can be really expensive. I do have some recipes in Container Gardening Complete where you're mixing up your own potting soil, which does help you save a lot of money. Technically, as a horticulturist, because I want you to prevent diseases, I need to say replace 100% of that potting soil. But if it's just out of your budget to do that, completely out of your budget, I would at the very least empty it out, mix it with some fresh compost, add some new potting soil to it, still clean out the pot, but then you can go ahead and reuse that. But ideally, you do want to replace it if you can.
And this is very important that you need to be visual about your plants, knowing what a disease looks like versus if it's just too dry or other things, because then you know what you need to do the following year to prep for the next season.
That is absolutely true, and that is why that troubleshooting guide, or a troubleshooting guide like the one in the back of Container Gardening Complete, is so important because it does have pictures of, what does septoria leaf spot look like? What does late blight look like? What are all these pathogens? And you can, once you ID them, then you can say, okay, listen, this plant had this. I know I need to empty and clean this pot out this year, because you definitely don't want a pathogen like that to overwinter.
Right. And as gardeners, whether you're a newbie or an advanced, you just don't want to, the thinking process, oh, it's not that bad, it will go away. That doesn't happen. It's just one of them things. For people who want to get your book, this new book you just came out, the Container Gardening Complete, and find out more information about you, and I do recommend getting the book if you have any inkling about container gardening. You've covered every aspect from top to bottom. How can people find your book and find out more about you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, I'm so glad to hear that you guys enjoy the book and find it useful. Folks can get Container Gardening Complete through any online or brick-and-mortar bookstore, including Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. They can even get it at online at Target and Walmart and all those booksellers. And they can find more information about me on one of two different websites, just JessicaWalliser.com or SavvyGardening.com.
Well, Jessica, we appreciate you taking your time, being with us, and sharing all this information with us to help us be better gardeners and container gardeners.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I always enjoy talking with you.
Thank you, Jessica.
And when we come back, your garden questions, our garden answers.
If you have a gardening question, now is the time to call in on the ivorganics.com 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline at 414-444-5250.
Hoss Tools wants to help you grow your own food. From seed starting supplies, hand tools, drip irrigation, harvesting equipment, and a complete line of all-natural pest control solutions, they've got you covered. Keep your garden weed-free with their time-tested, American-made wheel hose that are built to last a lifetime. And the precision garden seeders have proven design for planting a wide variety of seeds. Hoss Tools has what you need to get the most out of your growing space, large or small. Free shipping and outstanding customer service. Shop online or request a free catalog at HossTools.com. An Oya is an unglazed porous clay pot with a short neck and a wider belly. Bury your Oya neck deep in your raised bed, container, or ground garden and let the Oya do your watering by releasing water as needed. How? By soil moisture retention for all you techies out there. This is an eco-friendly, efficient, ancient way to water your plants using up to 70% less water than other irrigation methods. It saves you time and is easy to install. Find a retailer through DrippingSpringsOyas.com. Smart watering, easy gardening.
Here at Outpost Natural Foods, it's not just that we're community-owned that sets us apart. It's the fabulous foods we sell. We celebrate Earth Day every day by offering our customers the finest natural and organic food selections in Greater Milwaukee. Outpost local farmers and vendors provide our stores with a delicious selection of fresh seasonal produce that you won't want to miss. Outpost stores are located in Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, Bayview, and Mequon. We're a real Milwaukee original where anyone can shop and anyone can join. For the whole scoop about Outpost, we invite you to visit www.outpost.coop.
Do you have a problem with deer or small herbivores eating your vegetation? There is a natural solution that is safe for your pets and family. Bobex is the answer. An environmentally friendly solution to protect your plants, will not wash off, and is guaranteed. Bobex Deer was independently tested against 9 known competitors and rated 93% effective, second only to a physical barrier. Bobex can be used on all types of ornamentals, trees, and shrubs. Ask for it by name at your local independent garden center. Find out more, visit bobex.com. BOBBEX.com. Flame Engineering, home of the Weed Dragon, the perfect propane torch kit for home and garden use. For killing weeds, no need to pull or spray. 100 other uses. Find out more at flameengineering.com. Root Assassin, a garden tool that does all the root functions with its advanced shovel that has serrated edges on both sides. Find out more information at rootassassinshovel.com.
Beans and Barley Market and Cafe, a neighborhood specialty grocery store for the east side of the greater Milwaukee area where you can find all you need. From fresh produce to bakery to organic frozen dinners, from wine to fresh squeezed carrot juice, a health food store with hundreds of products, vitamins, supplements, bath and body items, magazines, cards, books, and a knowledgeable staff. Catering available, open daily at 8 a.m. The restaurant serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week with a menu of good, healthy, homemade food, including vegetarian and non-vegetarian specialties. 1901 East North Avenue, Milwaukee, 414-278-7878, and online at beansandbarley.com.
I want a garden center that listens to and understands my needs.
I want to buy my gardening products from a local business with strong ties to the community.
All I want is a garden center that truly values their customers.
It seems like everyone is selling plants these days, but I'm having a hard time finding quality.
I take pride in my garden, so I want my garden center to take pride in their products.
Where will you be going for all of your gardening needs this season? Blue Mel's Garden Center. We are your answer.
Blue Mel's, 4930 West Loomis Road, 414-282-4220. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is brought to you by the following: Haas Tools, Tree Dyker, Root Maker, Seeding Square, Rebel Green, Dripping Springs Oyas, Zaz Products, Shield and Seal, Pomona Universal Pectin. Find all sponsors at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your host, Joey Holly-Baird.
It's the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. If you got a question, you're more than happy to call us on the IV Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline. IV Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard is a naturally protects your plants against damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents. Protects newly installed plants, trees, shields, prune, damages surfaces for your roses, fruit, nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. This product is non-toxic, environmentally safe, and organic. Find out more at ivorganics.com. It's also easy, simple to apply. Well, we've had a number of questions come in through social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those locations. One is growing sweet potatoes. I know how to make the slips as well as how to root them. My problem is I get no sweet potatoes. Well, you're going to get your slips, and I'll explain the slip portion of it. You're going to take a potato, sweet potato, and hang it with 3 toothpicks and let the bottom third of it set in a mason jar of water. Over a few weeks, it will begin to root, and then it'll begin to put eyes or growth tips on that will produce the slips. This is the most cheapest way to do such. Otherwise, you can buy slips online, but it's extremely expensive. So by doing that, once the slips emerge, they get 4 or 6 inches long. Then you want to put them in a glass of water so they fully root, and then you can transplant them into a container before you get them outside if it's too early. So sweet potatoes need heat. They take 90 to 170 days to reach maturity. So based on the variety, you want to make sure that you get something that is going to work if you're in the Milwaukee area, southeast Wisconsin. Southern states don't have this problem. Plant in full sun 3 to 4 weeks after the last frost date. So we're talking here about early mid-June in some instances. You'll bury the slips up to the leaves, and you'll press the soil gently around them. And these are going to vine out. And anywhere that vine hits the ground, there's the potential of putting on another tuber underground. And you can, these sweet potatoes, based on the conditions, can get 15, 20 square feet. They want, best type of soil is well-drained soil, fine, sandy, or loam soil. Usually results in the best root development. So they don't grow as great in heavy soil like clay soil. So you want to keep that in mind. Organic soil obviously is the best, and you can feed them as you need to throughout the growing season. The leaves are edible, by the way. You can use them in stir fries. Gene S. From Milwaukee says, I really enjoy your radio show. I love how your question and answer segment, because you push through so many questions and give so much information. Well, we appreciate that as well. I've tried growing, another question here, I've tried every year to grow rosemary, but it always dies. What am I doing wrong when I bring it inside? Well, there's 2 problems in which you having. One is potential root rot, and 2 is the change in amount of light. You're bringing it from outside, which is very bright, to inside, which is not as bright, and the rosemary plant has a very difficult time adjusting to it. Root rot, if you're watering it too much, that can also be the problem why you're having the plant die off.
So we have time for one last question. It's a 3-part question. This person wants to know about growing tomatoes in grow bags. What do you recommend I use for a planting medium? I know that I should not use garden soil. For tomatoes, what is the minimum gallon bag size I should use? And any particular brand of bag you would recommend? So first of all, you do not want to use garden soil. It could get very compacted in the container.
As well as you're bringing diseases in, you're not using a clean mix.
Right. So you could use a pre-made potting mix We use Kellogg garden products, of course. Or you can make your own mix, and you would do a 3-3-3, so a third of compost, peat moss, or some sort of peat type
cocoa core,
yeah. And then a third of vermiculite or perlite.
Yeah, and you can do that. Just realistically, if you're just doing a few bags, buying the pre-mixed stuff from Kellogg Garden Products is the best way to go, and that's available at your local Home Depot. Secondly, what is a minimum size grow bag that you would recommend growing in?
I would say the 10-gallon grow bag. That may seem huge, but in grow bag size, it's the right size for a tomato. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, so you do 1 per grow bag, and you're good to go. Those grow bags, they do last a long time, 10, 15 years.
Now, you could go on the cheap route and get a 5-gallon bucket and puncture holes in the bucket. You don't want to do it at the bottom like we would traditionally know, drill holes in the bottom of the bucket. You want to go up along the edge of the bucket about 1.5 inches and then drill 4 or 5 holes around the circumference of the bucket. What that does, it allows water to set down in the base of that bucket below those holes in which were drilled and actually act as a water reservoir or self-watering. So if you forget to water or whatever, there's a little extra water there that can wick up into the soil to feed your plant. So a 5-gallon bucket works. We would recommend the Root Maker grow bags. They have sizes from 1 gallon to 60 gallons, and they have a heat-tempered coating on them.
That's one thing we like about them is they have this white heat-tempered coating. You might think, well, I might not need that. I'm in a cooler climate. It does help repel a lot of the sun, especially during the hottest part of the summer, which is nice because when you're growing in containers, you do have to water them a bit more because of that heat, so you want to keep that in mind. So that white coating does assist with that.
Well, in containers, they dry out anyway quicker
Right.
because they're elevated and they're more exposed to the environment and the atmosphere and all of that, which goes along with it.
And personally, I think they look nicer than a black grow bag. Black grow bags look kind of The white ones look a little bit more peppy, I guess.
More professional, cleaner
look.
Yeah. Let's squeeze another question in here real quick.
Okay, so is it too late to start pepper seeds? I want to grow habaneros, jalapenos, maybe something a little bit hotter. Is it too late now to start them in the Milwaukee area?
Technically, yes, but you could start them. We typically start our pepper seeds the second week in February. They take, you want to start them about 10 to 12 weeks before your last average frost date, which based on where you're at, here in Milwaukee, it's about April 20th to April 30th based on what chart you're looking at. So you want to keep that in mind. Peppers are a very slow-growing plant, and that's why you want to start them so early so they can get that growth establishment. And we don't put the peppers out in the ground until sometimes it's been early June, because you want that. Peppers are a tropical plant, and they're wanting that root warmth, that warm soil, like at root zone. When you dig a hole 3-4 inches deep to plant that start, you want that soil to be 60 degrees minimum, consistently, if not warmer, because they're just going to sit there in a dormancy state until that soil warms up. So, yeah, you could go ahead and start them now. Recommendations would be just, if you're a new gardener, go ahead and buy the starts from Blue Mel's or your favorite garden center, and then work with building the plants, understanding the plants, and then you can start them from seed and get more varieties next year. We are out of time, and we appreciate yours. Programming note, join us next week. Tell your friends. We are going to discuss the cheapest crops that you can grow, that they are the most expensive to buy in the stores, as well as berry patches. Is it right for you? What you need to know, and the space that required, containers or not containers, as well as...
We'll have our guest, Todd Heft. He's from the Big Blog of Gardening.com, so we'll have him on the program.
As well as your questions. Miss any portion of this program or want to revisit this program, segments, or past shows, you can find all of that under the radio tab and the highlight tab at the website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. For
Holly Baird,
I'm Joy Baird, and until next week, we will see you in the garden.
You have been listening to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. Tell a friend and join Joey and Holly again next week so we can all grow together. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is a production of the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com in association with WI Garden Media Broadcasting, live from the WNOV 860 AM and the W293CX 106.5 FM, Courier Communication Studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.